Drag nets are used for sea fishing. This is perhaps the most modern of all the fishing methods used in the Ebro Delta, and it's also the most effective in terms of numbers of fish caught. All the different types of fish and shellfish are taken to the local fish market where the catch is sold by auction to possible buyers. The inland fields of the delta are fertile thanks to the mud that the Ebro has deposited over the centuries. On the coast, however, the vegetation has to withstand a very high salt level, poor soil that does not hold water, and an almost constant wind. These factors make them unsuitable for cultivation, and this has been their salvation. The immense majority of untouched land in the delta is on the coast. The coastal birds are also the most abundant in the natural park. There are some particularly important colonies. The slender-billed gull, for example, has its second biggest breeding colony in Europe here. The gulls make the most of almost all marine resources. Their diet includes fish, crustaceans, carrion, and even other birds' eggs. However, these small animals that live in the sand on the beaches are the property of another bird, the sandpiper. As the tide goes out, flocks of sandpipers run among the waves in search of food. Their short legs do not let them go too far into the water, but they are very well designed for running, which is an essential ability given their way of feeding. The sandpipers belong to the same group as the avocets and the black-winged stilts. They are wading birds and, like other species of sandpipers, have chosen the coast as their home. One of them is particularly noteworthy for the peculiar way it feeds itself, the turnstone. As its name suggests, its hunting technique consists of lifting up the pebbles on the shore in order to eat the animals sheltering underneath. The turnstones only visit the Ebro Delta in winter. Their breeding grounds are much farther north in coastal regions near the Arctic Circle. The salt lagoons of the Ebro Delta are visited every year by a legendary bird. The ancient Egyptians believed it to be the phoenix, the creature that burnt itself to cinders only to arise from the ashes the next day. Its pink pigment, which was like fire, or flamma in Latin, gave rise to a legend and is the root of its name, the Flamingo. The flamingo's diet is made up of small crustaceans and mollusks that inhabit the lagoons. In order to be able to capture them, the inside of their beak is endowed with numerous small flaps. When the water comes in, these flaps lie flat so as not to offer any resistance. But when the water is expelled, the flamingo lifts them up. The water filters through them and small animals are trapped inside. While the beak carries out this operation again and again, the flamenco moves its legs to lift up the mud from the bottom of the lagoon, and the small crustaceans that make up its diet come with it. All the females lay their eggs at the same time of year, so the chicks of each colony are almost all born at the same time. After 4 days in the nest, the chicks are gathered in large groups under the care of just a few adults. From this moment on, the parents will only visit their young to feed them. It takes the young some time to acquire what will be their definitive plumage with its characteristic pink shade. Contrary to the rest of the birds, this shade is not permanent. The flamingos get this from the organisms that make up their diet. The birds will inevitably return to their original white color if they do not have the pigments produced by these organisms, as zookeepers well know. The only places in Europe where flamingos breed regularly are in the Camargue in France and the Laguna de Fuente de Piedra in Spain. They are really just passing through the Ebro Delta, a place of rest at the halfway point on their migratory cycles. The majority of the European colonies moved to winter quarters in Africa. However, not all follow this example. Every year, a variable number of flamingos spend the winter in the saltwater lagoons of Spain. On some occasions, there are just a few, but in some seasons, there can be several thousand. After spending some months in the saltwater lagoons of the Ebro Delta, most flamingos continue their migration.